country. Hondo, Texas, 25 miles west of San Antonio. This is a church that I visited a couple of years ago numerous times and did an ethnographic study on them, ethnomusical study, and some other studies, and I was struck by the way that their music mediates, or music presents, a message beyond what the words say. And I started to write and research that and step out on it, and this is sort of a result of that. So what we're going to do is, our objective, to examine the congregational song of a single local evangelical church whose congregation numbers between 50 and 200 members, specifically the role of a chosen genre of music in forming community and framing corporate identity and spiritual vision. That's sort of a mouthful. But what we're going to do is we're going to look at this music in light of, it's cowboy music, playing cowboy style music, playing all kinds of lyrics from classic lyrics to hymn lyrics to I don't know, to rock lyrics to gospel lyrics and songs, but all done within that distinctive style. And we're going to look at it, probably we're going to look at it from the view of Mary Hufford, who is a folklorist. Back in the Appalachian area, she studies there and does study about the effects of folklore and all of that sort of thing. So we're going to look into that. We're going to look at it through the eyes of a Russian, Mikhail Bakhtin, who was studied semiotics, the study of signs, and he was very instrumental in writing and talking about narrative. How does an author put a story into a text, and how does the text present the story to the reader, and the whole process in between, and how does the situation of the reader affect what was coming out of the text? And does the author have any effect on the situation of the reader? Those kind of things. So we'll look at it all the way over to a Russian type way as well. All right, we're going to need some definitions. All right, we'll go through these really quickly. We're going to define these words: framing, context, narrated event, and event of narration. Now, you all have these handouts already. I probably should have left the answers out. But I was going to ask you, what do you think framing is? Okay, but you can probably just look at that. All right, so there you go. It's a set of concepts and theoretical perspectives that organize experiences, guide the actions of individuals, groups, and societies. That's a big way of saying it's not the normal thing that you would get out of a dictionary, but that's where I was talking about Mary Hufford. Okay, so when we start to look at this, the framing is basically what it sounds like. The idea of this is a picture on a wall, right? And you have a frame around it, and the frame sets the picture off from the wall as separate and worthy of being looked at in a different way than the rest of the surroundings. And that's what framing is. It's a way of setting something apart and being able to study it. Context is a frame of reference created in order to constitute and interpret an object of attention. All right? Context coming from the Latin contere, I believe it is, which is to weave. Okay, to weave, to take bunches of many threads, many different ideas, many different parts, and weave them together into a single unified object. Okay? So, what that tends to do is we look inside the frame at the picture, and the context of that picture would then be, is it modern? Because you recognize certain ways that it all fits together, right? Is it a cubist? Can you identify a specific artist? Those kind of things. So that's what the context is going to be right now. It's going to be the sum total of everything within the frame and the effect that it has. Okay, so when we're looking at the music of the Cowboy Church, we're going to look at the frame that it's set in quickly. We're going to briefly look at the whole frame. When you walk into the church, where is that music set? Then we're going to look at the context. How does everything in that interrelate, okay, within the music? We'll get these rather quickly so we can get the music itself. But then we have two terms, the narrated event and the event of narration. All right? These are rather complicated, and they tend to get, I tend to mix them up all the time. All right? The narrated event, this comes from Mikhail Bakhtin, okay? Bakhtin, the Russian. The narrated event is simply the event that is narrated in the work. All right? If it's a book, is it a book about history? Is it a book about specific American history? Is it, if it's about a person, what is the event or that is narrated within the work itself? All right? So if it's music, if we're talking about a narrated event in music, it could be, what is the style of the music? What is the text of the music? These kind of things that are implicit within the event itself. They're called the narrated event. Now, the event of narration, the situation, circumstances, and occasion framing personal experience of a narration. That's the actual event. that's going on, not the music itself. So in the church, in God's country, or in your churches, congregational singing is the event of narration. All right? Congregational singing is the event of narration, taking place within the framework of your church, the sum total of all that's been placed around it in terms of the context, all right? And then the narrated event is what is the result of all of this put together as we sing? What is the result to the people that are singing? What is the result to the people that are listening? What happens as it all is taken together? That's what we're going to look at. That's one of the reasons why I just loved working with the Cowboy Church, because it's so far removed from the music that I was running in worship or doing anything that I was able to take an outside look, and start to look at some of this. So there's two more definitions we're going to have to need real quickly. Medium and mediate. All right? These are words that I'm going to be throwing at you fast and furious. Medium, a thing by which or through which something is done. The book itself is a medium. All right? It's an object that is telling the story, transferring information. All right? The television is a medium. We've all heard about that. Anymore, all the movies, all the television shows, everything, they're whatever, medium, just saturated with all kinds of messages, media, radio, music, our music of singing. That's the medium that we have. It's going to be carrying the message. And mediate, then, is acting through an intervening agency. Okay? So the book we were talking about actually mediates the author's ideas to the reader's ears. All right? So what the book is about, okay, is one thing, but the intent, mediating is an intent. What is transmitted through? So in your church music, in your singing, what does that music say? As the congregation sings, what is the corporate idea saying? What are individuals saying? What are they saying to another listener? Or what are they mediating? What message are they mediating to our Savior? What's going on there? And we're going to try to look at this very quickly in a minute, but we just needed to get through this basic basic framework. Okay, the studies that I've talked about, and the studies that I've talked about will have all basically arisen from concerns that have come about from the rising of the contemporary Christian music scene, okay, and the praise and worship music scene and all of that. Not as reactions to the music, not as reactions to the style. These people are scholars and they're looking very carefully at effect. Okay, they're more concerned about the industry side of it. How is the industry driving worship? Okay, what effects is the industry having? So how does that affect a smaller church? Does a smaller church scramble and try to do the latest praise and worship music or the newest Chris Tomlin song? Okay, the almost instantaneous transfer of information today can be a problem, especially for a small church. If you have a younger population that just wants right away this song, this song, this song. I see a couple of you nodding your heads. I've been there, I know you have. 10 minutes after it's released, we can have it. And we can download the music for it. We can download a lead sheet, we can download a melody sheet, we can download a vocal arrangement, a piano sheet, probably a whole orchestration if we have an orchestra, all right? I mean, they cookie cutter these things out so quick you wouldn't believe it, but they're all available to do, and that is a very big concern. Larger churches with the resources to do this kind of thing can just take and throw it out, and the orchestra will play it, the praise team will assemble it, the choir, I mean, it's just boom, 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 they can do that, but smaller churches can't. And so I want to look at how we frame things, but within the frame of our worship, how music can be used to show the unique individuality of our church, okay? Many people grapple with ethical issues as well. And I was just talking a little bit about that, of the shaping of faith, testimony, and ritual for commercial return. Everything that you buy now, if it's a worship guide, if it's a worship song, if it's a worship planner, if it's anything else, these have been planned and engineered for the broadest possible sales. All right? The ulterior motives, where they may have been at the beginning, are basically gone. The motives now are, it's purpose-driven, or it's money-driven. All right? I'm talking about Rick Warren. Okay, it's money-driven, okay? So as you go out and you look and you say, here's word music, and good heavens, wow, look at that. There are more songs for praise and worship, 7. I only have the first 6. People are so tuned in to having to have it. Boom, they buy it. They buy the orchestrations, they buy all this stuff. How much of it will they use? I don't know. But it's all money-driven. And so we need to understand that we don't have to fall into that as small churches. We don't have to fall into that. There's nothing too wrong with using it, but we just don't have to fall into that mode. All right? Dave Perkins has written, and this quote is taken from him. Dave Perkins has written a wonderful article within another compilation, Music, Culture, Industry, and the Shaping of Charismatic Worship. A tremendous article, if you can get hold of that book, that just clears some things up in terms of how the music industry works. It talks about how they're marketing. They have a marketing plan called Becky. How many of you heard of Becky? Becky is a 29 or 32-year-old woman with 2 kids who does this, who does that, drives a certain kind of car, does all this. They're marketing their songs, they're marketing their worship materials, they're marketing all this for Becky or a variation of Becky. It's almost frightening to see, but it's so true. This is a great article for you to look into as small church people to maybe give you another look into this. Now, Dave Perkins has also met in the late 1980s, early 1990s with recording industry, Christian recording industry executives. One major executive, and who will remain nameless right now, and a top worship leader. And there was a concern for them about the authority of culture industry's media powers, how it eclipses the value and identity of a local church. You know, so you have a local church that's been something all these years, and all of a sudden the media hits and all this stuff, the kids come up or whatever, they've got new styles, new this, do that, boom, 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 everything starts to change and it becomes dominant because you need to do it as the same way that the church down the street does it. You know, or you need to do it the same way that Hillsong United does it. Or you need to do it the same way, I mean, it just goes. And what is Hillsong? 4 or 5 different entities now. There's like Hillsong Europe, Hillsong United, Hillsong this, Hillsong that. Okay, and it's all marketing still, it really is when you look into it. But so their desire at that early stage in the Christian music industry was still to see worship music maintain its vitality and relevance. And in order to do that, the churches must explore their own creative resources. They were making these recordings, they were starting to produce these kinds of worship materials, but their main concern at the very beginning was still that churches would use those materials and explore how they could use them creatively within the church. Do you have a guitar player? Great. Do you not have a guitar player? Use a mandolin. Do you have, in other words, use these materials that way. That's changed now. Now people expect them to be played the way that they're heard, or with a large sound system, or with the effects pedals on the guitars, and all that sort of thing, okay? So, and once again, that came out of Dave Perkins, that article. It's really good. So, there are, however, quite a few evangelical churches that have established and are able to maintain a unique and vibrant worship apart from the popular genre. Okay, you probably know some of them. There are some of them that are a high church. They have a very distinct liturgy that they follow. They follow the church year. They follow they have their congregational hymns. Some of them even use chant or things in certain parts of the year. They follow the hours of the day. At times they'll sing the proper things. They maintain their identity aside from any other cultural thing around them by maintaining and protecting that identity. It sets them apart as who they are. All right. The Cowboy Church in God's Country is one of those churches. Here you go. When you drive into Hondo, Texas, this is the sign that you first see.
Oh, yeah.
This is God's country. Please don't drive through it like hell. All right? The please wasn't added until 10 years ago. Okay? Because they thought it was too drastic at that point. Gives you an idea. When I went there for my interviews and for the studies that I did, we were in the middle of the worst drought in 150 years, recorded history, whatever it was, and there was a great, huge concern for what was going on. It was extremely hot and dry.
I was there in 1972 during the youth-led revival when the bridge between Hondo and San Antonio was underwater.
Wow, that's great.
And the only thing keeping one side of Hondo from flooding was the railroad track down the middle of town.
Yeah. Every now and then you get those 100-year floods that are absolutely amazing. Absolutely. This sentiment is strictly enforced. When you see that sign, slow down to whatever it says. I think it's 45. All right. Go about a quarter mile past that sign, turn right, drive another half mile, and this is what you see. This is the advertisement outside of the Cowboy Church in God's Country. That's it. That's how you know where you are. Their grounds are, they have about 25 or 30 acres. They have a riding arena for the church where they hold church rodeos and events and so on and so forth. They have the church event and things. They have places for you to tie up horses, to keep horses if you need to bring them, so on and so forth. It's that way. The building that they're in is an old Air Force barracks that was turned into a restaurant that became a bar that was moved. They bought it, and now it's what it is. All right. They've decorated the inside with anything that you can think of that would fit in a Western cowboy ranch house. All right, as you walk in, first of all, they have two really nice porches or chairs on their porch, and people stand up the minute you arrive, and you're greeted by one or two people right away, very warmly. Howdy, what you doing, whatever. Cowboy hats, the boots, you know, it's that way. I walked inside and immediately was hugged by a giant man. I thought, oh, and he says, glad to see you, brother, and talking to me. But I would have been taken aback, except the look in his eyes and the concern that he had. I knew after talking with him for about 5 minutes that he would have stayed with me for another hour and a half or 2 hours, finding out what was wrong in my life, what was happening, and then done everything he could to help me. It was that genuine. It was really, really incredible. And that has to do a little bit with what we're going to talk about in a minute, about the cowboy code, which is interesting. The floors are wooden. The chairs are fold-up chairs. There's sayings burned into wood, cowboy sayings around the sanctuary area, the main room, and linked to appropriate Bible verses. Off to the left, as you go in, the door is open to the kitchen, and they're cooking. You can hear the bacon frying, hear it sizzling in the pan. No, you can hear whatever's cooking in there. You can smell it. You can hear the knives cutting. The people are volunteering. They're talking. All of that's going on. The musicians are up at the front as they come in. They're not playing anything organized, but they're just warming up. We'll listen to that in a minute. They're just warming up, getting together, playing here, limbering up their fingers, getting ready to play. You'll find people in, like I said, cowboy hats. They'll wear cowboy boots, jeans, shirts. You'll find people in suits. It's called a low barrier model. In other words, the whole idea of the model is not to create any barriers to come in. Just come as you are. Boots will very often be muddy. You have ranchers driving in, bringing their family in after they had chores, after they had responsibilities with their ranch. They come in, many times they come in with their dog. The dogs are welcome. The muddy dogs come in too. Boom! It's there. It's just all set up for that. Okay? As you walk in to the right, there's a big horse trough they take outside that they use for baptizing. So people are baptized in a horse trough. Wow. There's a feed trough mounted on the wall for offerings, for the offerings. They don't take an offertory. That's a barrier. That's something that turns people off. They don't do it. People just come in and they give or they don't. They give when they come in or they go give when they leave. They give quite a bit. But there's no low barriers, all right? The hats are worn the whole service except when we pray. When you pray, the hats come off. And I've personally witnessed an older woman sitting behind a guy when prayer started. About 10 words into the prayer, the guy hadn't taken his hat off, and she reached up and knocked it off for him, behind him. Okay, so it's enforced. That's the kind of attitude that's there. All right. So, I know you've arrived. We're going to take two directions on this investigation of music. So you've got a little bit of an idea of what it's like in the church itself. All right. We're going to look at function and functioning. Okay, how does the music function, and what is its what's its process? How does it work? We're going to use these words again: medium, mediated object. We talked about those. All right, I think we did. Yeah, we did. Well, medium and mediate. Okay, we talked about those. So we're going to do it in that way. We're going to be looking, basically, this on Tom Wagner, Music as a Mediated Object. Beautiful book. It's a whole long book. Very hard to read. It's one of those books where I read a paragraph, and I read it again, and I say, I'll never get that. And I go to the next paragraph, and then all of a sudden something clicks, and you go back. And it's very, very good. But it's a very, very good look at congregational singing and the effects of music and how it works. And then we're going to take a look at the Russian, Mikhail Bakhtin, his musical message. We're going to look for the musical message in here. That's the message that the music carries without the text. Does it? I don't know. Because that's a big thing. Can music carry meaning without text? Okay? Without sorts of whatever. Whether you believe it or whether you don't believe it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter here. We're just going to look into it. We're going to look into it and check it. All right. Hey, I'm going along quite well. All right. Okay. Although the origins of the contemporary worship and cowboy church movements occurred at the same time, they're vastly different. Both started in the 1970s. Okay, 1970s moving on into the 1980s. The contemporary Christian music started as an embracing of a younger generation of Christians of popular and folk music. All right, that was circulating at the time, and they sort of incorporated it into the church, into their meetings. They would oftentimes take existing melodies and tunes and add words to them. No different than the hymns did, than Luther did with the hymns, or Calvin did the medical psalms, but then than Luther did. I mean, so that's been going on a long time. That's how that got started. That's the history of CCM. That's the baggage that CCM carries. Or no, I shouldn't say baggage, that's the history. That's the message from its roots that carries. The Cowboy Church dug into and latched hold of a form of music, cowboy music, Western music, that was already deeply romanticized and emblematic and portraying visions of the American West, the westward expansion, all right? The cowboy, his ethics, you know, his perseverance, his integrity. The cowboy would place his life and stand between evil and anybody else, from a small boy to whatever. This was a carefully, you have to understand, this was a carefully planned and romanticized vision of the cowboy that came about through writings and through film, the film industry, and the early film industry. The cowboy movies were just amazing, and they wore the white hats, and they had the guns, and everybody, it's a huge undercurrent of American identity. The realm of the cowboy western song, the way I call it this way, we'll just talk about it, right now is cowboy western music. True cowboy western music is pretty much limited to the voice, fiddle, mandolin, acoustic guitar, and I say electric bass because the God's Church and the church, God's Church, well, that church that we're talking about. Okay, I forgot the acronym or whatever. Okay, they use an electric bass. They have used an upright bass from time to time or go with no bass, so I just included that in there. It's a vocal message dominated realm. What I mean by that is cowboy music is designed to tell a story. It's designed to tell a story. It's designed to present an example of virtue, or, you know, somebody that died a virtuous death or did whatever, you know, way down in the Pinon Canyon along the Ninial Trail, near the tiny town of Santos, nestled in a quiet dell, lies the lonely grave of a cowboy. To most it is unknown, save to the few frontiersmen who call that spot their own. You know, and then they'll tell the story, and maybe humorously, Curly Joe was the name he went by. 'Twas enough none cared to know. If he ever had another, so they called him Curly Joe. You know, it goes on, and that's like a 25 stanza ballad my grandfather knew. My grandfather sang country western songs, sang on the radio actually, way back whenever, in Sheridan, Wyoming. So anyway, that's the message dominated realm. The words in the message are key. It's not style, it's not neat guitar licks, it's not a sonic bombardment of sound, it's not a beat, it's a vocal message. All right? Did I do that? Is that all? Okay. All right. The rhythmic source is derived from the natural gaits of a cowboy's horse. All right. Now this is unique, but it's very, very well documented. The walk, the trot, and the lope. All right. If you want to look it up, there's two people that have extensively examined this. It's not a swing. It's not a jazz swing. It's not any kind of. It's its own thing. It's not the lope is a two-beat, which is very more jarring than you expect even a polka to be. Any of you ride? Anybody ride horses? You know, if you're loping along, it's nice and smooth, sort of. It's really, but when that horse drops that lope, it's and boy, you're just about to get bounced out of the saddle. That's the whole idea between a lope and the trot. I don't know of any other way to say it. I haven't read anything that makes it more understandable than that. I've experienced it, and that's all I can say. Okay, the lope is nice and smooth, you feel great. The trot makes you saddle sore. So at any rate, that's the way that works. Okay, let me give you some examples very quickly. How many of you are familiar with the Carter family? All right, some of you are younger, you may not be, that's all right. They were very, very, at the beginnings of Western music. Okay, it wasn't country music yet. It didn't become country music until the advent of the drums. I'll talk about that in a minute. But here we go, this is the Carter family, just to give you an idea. This is a trot. And when you listen to it, listen to the chink, 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 and you'll sort of get an idea. Oh, where did it go? Okay.
Everybody's got the wolf,
You know, it's what it is.
they got the wolf, get by themselves. There's nobody here can walk it for them.
And the words, the vocal, it's primary, totally. Gonna tell a story about his family walking with the Lord, okay, in the Lonesome Valley. This is the Cowboy Church in God's country now, singing Nearer My God to Thee. Listen to the same beat, the bad recording, but you'll get an idea. So, but you'll hear the same sort of beat now. This is contemporary, not from 1930. It's very easy. You can hear it. All right. I'll skip right down here. I'll give an example of softly and tenderly. This is a lope, okay? Oops. You feel that? The loping type, almost a triple, not really a swing, but there's a lilt to it. It's almost a waltz.
It's a waltz.
Yeah, it is. It's basically.
Yeah.
But the one thing is, and if you listen to it carefully and feel it, there's a moment where nothing's happening that is key. And when you ride on a lope, the horse goes, just jump, and then you're up, and nothing happens, and you wait for the next. So in these beats, as well, there's a hesitation. Boom, jump. Maybe you hear it better in this. Let's see if it shows it better. It's really rather interesting. A moment of nothing that's so important. It's just a slight different whatever. Anyway, that's an idea. Those are the two main ones. The walk, I don't even know. Nobody seems to talk about the walk. They all say that it's there, but they all just talk about the lope and the trot. Okay, in the middle of a church service, this is give you an example of the idea of vocal dominated, right? Joe Nixon was a local fiddle champion, regional fiddle champion. When he played, when I was there, he was 77, 78 years old. This was his chance to play a solo. Okay, in Awesome God, the Rich Mullins, all right? Now, Joe Nixon, when he soloed for church, said that he was echoing. In other words, he wanted to echo the melody. He wanted to echo it so that the people could experience the words in a new way. Okay, there's videos of him online playing some amazing things. Okay, this man was capable of so much more, but in terms of technical or doing whatever. But here, just to give you an example, whenever he had a solo, this is the kind of thing that he would play. Be there in a second. Okay, so you get the idea. He's just the whole intent of the music is only to pass on the message. All right, it really is. I could play on that as well. We got time. This is Joe Nixon. This is the beginning of a service, and he's just warming up, getting his fiddle chops ready to go or whatever, and everybody's getting ready. So and this might be the beginning of a service. Okay, so as everybody's warming up, and then maybe Joe will start doing or whatever, and then eventually when the band all gets together, it'll turn into a song, or it's not so much okay, here we go, let's get ready. The people are gathering around, and all of a sudden, it sort of congeals around their first song. So it's just an interesting way. So there we go. The music is simple chord progressions. The keys center around the open strings of the guitar. Make sense? E, A, G, E minor, C sharp minor, you know, those. And then no drum set. And this is a key to defining musical style, because the minute you add the drums, country music, this kind of cowboy music, when you add the drums, it becomes country music. Okay? Or it becomes rock music. Or it becomes gospel music. Or it becomes jazz music. Or it becomes, the drums are a key, very big key to defining musical style. This group does not allow the drums to play with them. Okay? That doesn't happen in cowboy churches around the country, but this one very much guards its identity in this kind of music. And I'll show you why in a minute. The pastor even alluded to this when I talked to him. So what style do they play? You ask any of them, this is what they'll say. Wow, we played some gospel this morning, and we played that great old spiritual, and we played the blues, and we played. The truth of the matter is, they played gospel lyrics, contemporary Christian lyrics, praise and worship lyrics, hymn lyrics, Gaelic lyrics, it doesn't matter, but they played them in a cowboy style. That's what it is. So they'll all tell you we played this style, this style, this style, but that's not what they do. They appropriate melodies and words, and then you just bring them in. They don't bring any baggage associated with any other style, you know, about having to perform it properly or in any other way. You know, you did that gospel song, but that's not how it's supposed to go. You know, gospel's supposed to, you know, and that's not right. The reggae song, I mean, they do it. They do island music, but they do it. Okay, there you go. Okay, but it's just all stripped of all of its any potential that it has for bringing into the church any other controversy or any other, if you believe in subliminal messages from the music, you know, or whatever, that they don't allow that to come in. So what style do they play? I said it, they play the cowboy style. We're going to take a look at the music now. The event of narration, narrated event. The event of narration is basically the singing of the congregation. That happens all across the country. That's the same event in every evangelical church, most churches. The singing of the controversy, the singing of the congregation, all right? The sung worship of the people, all right? Now, while the event of narration is common, okay, the narrated event is different. In the early Christian church, at the Reformation, okay, singing was common. Luther, they came up with the hymns. They took the German chorales. They wrote hymns of human origin. Okay, Calvin, just down the road in
Geneva.
What?
Geneva.
Geneva, yeah, Geneva, Switzerland. Thank you. Didn't believe in words that weren't from the Bible. He believed in singing, but he believed that only the words that were provided by God were to be sung. So their tradition was the Psalms. They sang the Psalms. They sang the canticles out of the Old Testament, and they made them. First, they sung them as prose. That didn't really work so well because they were so long and cloaky, and the melodies couldn't be remembered. So they wrote them as songs. They wrote them strophic. They wrote them metrical in verses and lines. So very shortly, within the next 100 years, 150 years, there were any number of complete groups. Psalters of the psalm, all 150 psalms, some more popular than others, whatever. None of them at the start had any music. They all used one or two melodies that people would know. Okay, so in other words, they might use a tune that was I don't know. It could be a Bach tune. Okay, a Bach chorale tune, but if the meter fit, then they could make it fit for any number of songs, any number of those metrical psalms. The same with the Lutheran Church. Any of the hymns, if the meter fit, you all are familiar with that. You all heard "Amazing Grace" sung to "House of the Rising Sun."
Oh yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, everybody's familiar with that. You know, anything that is in the same meter as "Amazing Grace" can be sung to "House of the Rising Sun." So if your church only knows "House of the Rising Sun" and two other popular melodies, you can probably sing all kinds of hymns to those, and the congregation can jump in and do it. All right. So that's the narrated event. That's what's different. What is the music saying about the church? You know, what is the music saying about the church? Denominational hymnals, when they sing, okay? Some lines are left out. Some are changed or added, okay? That narrated event is subtly different because it's within their framework, all right? That's what's happening. What is the music mediating? What idea is being projected through the music? Okay, oh, I hit the wrong one again. There we go. All right. Okay, Owen Wister wrote about the cowboy, and this is what's so important. Owen Wister, at the turn of the century, was an author. He made several trips west. He was a lawyer. He was Harvard trained. He studied music for 2 years at the Paris Conservatory. And he wrote prolifically about the West, short stories, but his most famous work is The Virginian, which was, after that, which has been made, was made into a stage play, was made into early movie films, several film adaptations, turned into television, maybe even a television series was a thing, whatever, but it was all, but the whole idea that he's the one that started that, okay? Owen Wister, he said, was a man with no property, no schooling, no social standing, no ambition for money, but he had boundless courage, competence, self-discipline, physical prowess, and integrity. The cowboy was a figure of romance in one of the most beautiful, romantic, and majestic natural settings on the planet. That's where basically it all started. And this whole cowboy culture that grew, that America embraced, that whole westward development type thing, started off in this way. And you start to see the almost mythical attributes that are assigned to a cowboy. Even nowadays, Michael Allen, studying rodeo cowboys nowadays, he found that among many of these modern cowboys, there's still a strict adherence to the cowboy code, a set of unwritten rules of behavior that evolved among the late 19th century Great Plains cowboys. Still, you find these people that work the ranch. Some people still go out and work ranches on horses, not very many, but within the rodeo people, there is still that idea of chivalry, that idea of responsibility. A handshake is a contract, you know, a bond, a contract, and all of that. That's all part of the cowboy aura that's around. That is part of cowboy song, because in those movies, the singing cowboy was huge. The cowboy would sing as he's on the trail with his horses. He would sing at night to keep his horses calm or his cattle calm. Good heavens, he would even sing when he was under attack, defending his campsite. And they start to sing or whatever and do whatever. It was just this whole singing idea of the cowboy song was ingrained in early America. All right. If we go back here, Judith and Andrew Kleinfeld, their article, and they have other things, but this article found in Society, if you can find it, is great. Cowboy Nation and American Character. There are a number of folklorists and people and scholars that have tied American character, the ideals of American character, directly back to the idea of the cowboy, the Western expansion, and the code of conduct and the ethics that were involved. So it's just, you can see, so CCM started from popular music, which was fine, but you can see all of a sudden the Cowboy Church grabbed into a wealth of meaning, and that's what makes it a little bit different, okay? So, the Cowboy Church, the combined playing of the band and the singing of the congregation form the event of narration, the sung worship of the people. We've already talked about that. Okay, let's talk about the event of narration, the narrated event. I'm going backwards. Okay, there we go. There's even more. Michael Allen. Cowboys are democratic, practical, innovative, courageous. They dislike intellectuals. They're individualistic, yet closely bounded by the code mores of their peers. These include an aversion to city life and civilization, fancy talk and boasting, plain talk. You know, it just gives you an idea. More and more. And this is found out still within the cowboy culture nowadays. Very many remnants of it. Okay, the congregational singing at sea. And this is where we start getting the music, and this is why all this preliminary stuff I've tried to rush through it, but this is where we really get into what we want to talk about and maybe discuss. Okay. The congregational singing of the church functions within a frame in which religion, music, technology, and culture are treated as mutually transformative parts of a media environment. All right, within the framework of the Cowboy Church, you visually see references to cowboys. You see boots, you see hats, you see the sayings on the walls, you see the water trough, you see the architecture, you see posters, you see the people cooking in the kitchen. It's going to be, you know, it's going to be beef. Okay, I mean, it looks when you go in there like, wow, this is something else, but talking to their pastor, you start to find out something else. Everything is carefully planned. Every last bit of this service that looks so free and spontaneous and whatever has been carefully planned. All the senses are stimulated, and all of the congregations both affect and are affected by the environment. All right, everybody participates in the environment, so it's a huge give and take of this Western ideal. Okay, here's some ideas. Some of the sayings. Behind every successful rancher is a wife who works in town. There you go. And then Proverbs 31:24, she makes linen garments and sells them and supplies the merchants with sashes. In other words, it just starts to tie. It's the man is the cowhand, not the outfit he wears. You know, and then it goes on, blind Pharisees, first clean. You know, the whole idea is tying all these scripture verses to Western ideals. Only a buzzard feeds on his friends. I like that one. Romans 12:10. Be devoted to one another in love, honor one another above yourselves. Cowboy sayings conflated with Scripture, combined all right away. And an interesting thing about this, we'll see in the music, is the cowboy sayings have an idea. The cowboy sayings present more than the message in the words, because they carry the weight of that history and that understanding behind them of what the cowboy was, what he did, about the taming of the West, about the power of that. So, by conflating the past and the present, we're not going to look at the whole service now. We're just going to look at the music, just very quickly, and see what's happening, all right? You have a romanticized cowboy past, highly romanticized, all right? And it's only recently that the cowboy has started to take on a taint. It's only recently that you have conflicted heroes in the cowboy movies, or some that are a little bit sadistic maybe, or malevolent, or vindictive. It used to be none of that, but it's only recently that the portrayal of the cowboy in the movies has changed. They were almost always good. Boom, boom, boom. Definition, good, bad, strong. So we have the romanticized cowboy past and the envisioned cowboy present. All right? Honor, integrity, courage, self-discipline, and perseverance of the cowboy. Okay? It's wonderful. It's understood to be, whether it was true most of the time or not, that is what's understood through the image of the cowboy now. When you go to rodeos and talk to people about the cowboy and the cowboy code and the history of the cowboy, and you talk whatever, all of that, this is what you're going to find being talked about. This is what is understood as that. So, you have that being conflated or put on to the envisioned cowboy present. All right? Now, what's happening now is the vision is carried not in the words, but in the musical style itself. As part of, with the framework, as part of the whole service. You see the cowboy thing, you hear the cowboy music, so it's carrying a message beyond the words of cowboy past, of the singing cowboy. All right? The vision is carried not in the words, but in the musical style itself. For this reason, as the people of cowboy country in God's church, I made it simple. Cowboy Church in God's country sings Standing on the Promises, Awesome God, or there's something about that name. Something happens within that atmosphere or whatever. The cowboy western style itself is appending a subtext of the honor, courage, self-discipline, and perseverance required to serve their awesome God, or to be standing on the promises. All right? Now this is, I don't believe this is too much of a reach. Okay? And it's not inherent. It's carefully planned. You see what I'm saying? You have a romanticized past. You've latched onto it. So the Cowboy Church is built around that. They want to understand. The Cowboy Church wants to be representative of the honor, integrity, courage, self-discipline, and perseverance of the cowboy. This is why they're so careful of their music. It's why they're so careful of what comes in there. Because once you have country music coming in, then all of a sudden what comes in, when you add the drum sets, you start singing things like country music, then you have Waylon Jennings, you have all this whole other baggage that starts to come in with country music. All right? Now, it's rather interesting that this happens, okay? Because, I don't know, when we're immersed in our worship services, we're very, very conscious of, is it a fast song, is it a slow song, is it a song that fits a certain theme? Is it this? But what does our music mediate? As the event of narration, we sing, but as a narrated event, what is being communicated to all of our congregation people? That's just a question. The Cowboy Church does it within everything being sung the same way. That's the way they accomplish their ideals. That's why when they're singing, it's all part of that. It's all part of a creative understanding of the integrity, perseverance that it takes to be a Christian. The songs, the style itself feeds into that because of that past. All right. So how can we? If we're going to have a discussion about what musical messages we bring to our services? I don't know about that question. I don't know that we bring musical messages. Maybe we do. Maybe we should be concerned about that. But how can we frame a vision for our congregation? How can we frame a vision for our congregation? If we're going to sing a song, if I'm going to sing a simple song with my praise team, say I'm going to sing Holy Spirit, let the Spirit flow. Let it flow, let it flow, let it flow. For now I've lost the melody, okay? But let the Spirit flow. Let the Spirit flow. Holy Spirit, come. Okay, we can do this. We can sing. Let's sing about the Holy Spirit. Or maybe, what if we can frame it in a certain way? If we start framing our music, in a small church we can do this. because there's not huge expectation or momentum that's going. But suppose I frame let the Spirit flow by saying, imagine what would happen. Imagine what would happen if the Spirit of God joined us this morning. What would happen? Imagine what would happen. Would there be healing? Would there be excitement? Would the place be filled with a cloud? When what would happen as we sing this song? You say to them, imagine what would happen. All right? Imagine instead and go on and then sing the song and lead it. But cast a vision for your people within the frame, within the texture of within the whole texture of your service. Okay? Cast a vision in the event itself, in the singing, no matter what's going on around you. And just think about that. Try to think of creative ways in which you can frame a vision. I mean, you have any ideas, any talks?
So, I'm a little confused.
Sure.
So are you talking about how you set up the song for the congregation?
You can call it a set up a song. You can call setting it
Why
up.
is this song in the service? Why is it relevant to what we're doing today?
Yeah, absolutely. But in terms of becoming, it's funny, in terms of becoming a narrated event, okay, how does it directly affect somebody? You want that somebody not to know why we're singing it, but you want them to be thinking while they're singing. So in other words, so it's directly affecting them. In other words, using words like imagine, what if, or, can you conceive what would happen if, or those kind of things are a very good way, or any other way that you might do it. I haven't been doing that with my praise team as much as I probably should. I do it sometimes in rehearsal quite a bit with my people. Imagine this, imagine that, let's do this. But with the congregation, I'm going to have to step out and do it a little bit more as I get more and more. But I mean, it's just how do you frame it? It's more than just setting up a song. More than why are we singing? Why are we singing this? We're going to sing a song now to praise God. Well, pick a certain reason.
What I do often is I'll take, my church is very hymn-based,
Mm-hmm.
and so I often, there's the scripture that the hymn is based off of. So I'll take that, and I'll read that scripture, and I'll apply that to the verses of the song, or I'll apply that to the sermon that my pastor's doing.
Yes.
And so that way they're relating it on multiple levels.
Right.
Another thing that I've done is the hymn "It Is Well." I've told the story of that hymn multiple times, and that affects people in a way so that their minds are engaged with the song in multiple ways, and so that it sinks deeper.
Yeah, you can do that. You can explain. That's a wonderful way of doing things. That absolutely is. Any other ideas? You could do the same thing with music. You could do the same thing with music styles. You could say we're singing the song today, and it's in a gospel style, and you could say the gospel music arose out of the hardship of hardship of an oppressed people. And here it comes. Imagine singing this piece, being oppressed, being persecuted, doing whatever. Get an idea for people to understand what the music itself might carry. So absolutely. Any other ideas? This is just, I don't know. That's my last slide. I don't have any more magic clicks to keep going.
I noticed that in several of your slides, you use the word portrayal. Are you saying that it's a caricature?
Oh, are you talking about the cowboy?
Uh-huh.
What was created in Hollywood was a portrayal of the life. I don't know that you call it a caricature, but I don't think that it was 100% real, because I know that there was a lot of graft. I know there was a lot of bad cowboys. There was, you know what I'm saying, okay? But that wasn't what was latched onto. That's not where the history came from. So the Cowboy Church here was able to grasp onto something that had very, very positive connotations.
So what you're saying is it's what they aspire to be.
It's what they aspire.
Okay.
And so what they're singing about, what they're doing is what they aspire. When they sing "Standing on the Promises," they say, "I'm standing on the promises, but I'm going to stand here no matter what with my gun. Nobody's going to take this away from me. I'm immovable. I'm immovable here, and I'm going to protect my faith, my people. That's what's going on now. So, yes.
And our church is over 100 years old. Stained glass windows down each side. The sanctuary is hardwood floors, and especially on some Sundays this speaks to, we'll frame the worship by having them recall hundreds of years of saints that have walked the floors before.
Absolutely.
And actually our choir, the last time in All Saints, came down so that they could actually hear the footsteps of the choir coming in.
Mhm.
So they're picturing 100 years of saints, Christians, however you want to say it, walking through on All Saints Day, and then remembering them, but remembering not just this past year, not just the ones who've died over the past year, but 100 years of these walls.
Sure.
You know, and when we do that, that is important to that congregation, and I think it takes knowing that. That might not be super important to the Cowboy Church, but the Cowboy is. Maybe another church, there's something else
Absolutely.
that's super important to them or part of their culture, and you have to know your congregation. You have to know their history.
Absolutely. You have to step into your church and you have to work with what God's given you.
Mm-hmm.
All right? And you work with the musicians that you have. If you don't have the musicians you feel that you need, you train them. Okay? Personally, I don't hire musicians. The only paid positions at the church right now are piano and organ, or keyboard and piano. And they're paid very little. But they probably should get paid more for what all they do because they have to carry an extra burden. But I will bring in from the youth group, train them to bring up to the praise team, to the choir, to the orchestra. That's what we have to do. We're starting chamber groups so that when I don't have an orchestra, which is only about 14 or 15, we had 19 the other Sunday, so I can pretty much do what I want to do if I'm very careful. But when we're missing key people, I can bring in chamber groups to do an offertory or to do something to keep it going. Use the resources of the church instead of striving to be something we're not. Or instead of saying, oh my gosh, we're not going to have a trumpet player, let's hire one. Or let's do, just develop the resources in your church to be able to be flexible, to be able to be honored, to honor what God has given you. I'm a strong believer in that.
You have a 19-piece orchestra in a Cowboy Church?
No, I'm not in the Cowboy Church.
Oh, okay.
I'm not in the Cowboy Church.
All right.
So yeah, no, we had a very good turnout. So it's not always that way, but we are rebuilding, and it's very nice.
What church are you with?
I'm with Village Parkway Baptist Church in San Antonio.
In San Antonio?
In San Antonio. It's on the west side. So
I didn't know this about the Cowboy Church, and I don't know how generalized it can be for different congregations. Did you get a feeling of it?
okay,
It seems loosely denominational.
it's strongly denominational.
Okay.
The Cowboy Churches they all fall under an umbrella of a denomination.
Okay.
There are Lutheran, there are Baptists, there are Conservative Baptists, there are Southern Baptist Cowboy Churches. They fall under a denomination. Okay, quite a few of them play the cowboy music, but the majority of them now have switched. They've added the drum set. Okay, they're now playing country music. Something is changing. And what's starting to happen, you may like this, they're starting to build stages and add the electronics and the lights for their country band. They're starting to hire better country musicians so they can play. Then they're starting to invite others to come. And before you know it, there's going to be country music, Christian country music festivals. And they're all coming together just like we're getting with CCM, worship festivals. So it's growing. And there is a church not too far from San Antonio, I haven't been to it, that's up there that is now in the process, or was last year in the process, of splitting because some people like the traditional country and some people wanted contemporary country.
I was just about to say, what
So
kind
as
of
you can
strife is
see,
that?
so it's really interesting about the Cowboy Church. If I went on and wanted to explore that further, maybe there's a whole microcosm we could learn about what's going on, what's happened in our past by seeing something happen again in such a separate setting. That's why I like looking at the music of the Cowboy Church, because it's so far removed from my main experience. So, cool. Is there anything else? Any other questions? Any brilliant insights that I can add to my research? I really think.
That was interesting research.
Yeah.
I really think, as a scholar, I'm starting to be a scholar. I finished 2 years of PhD study here at Baylor, so I have to do a dissertation now. But I really think that there's a very big danger of the scholar becoming separated from the practitioner. Okay, and I think that we need to come down to a middle ground, because I think all of us, if we're really concerned about worshiping our Savior and using our resources to the best, we should all be scholars of church music. We should be willing and looking to research and look into, wow, that's interesting, why did that happen? And really digging into it instead of accepting on the surface, oh, I can just pull this song, or I can just do this, or whatever. Actually really look in, learn more about Luther. Learn about different churches. Learn about the Mennonite church and how they treated music. Learn learn all of this, because it's all a big pool of worship. And find out and we can only become stronger within our congregations, within our leadership roles, for actually learning, always learning about whatever we can, not just hymn stories. Learn, why does the music do what it does? Why does it do what it does? You know? So, well, very good. Any other?